Okay, we will call this January 15th, 2026 meeting of the Water and Sewer Authority of Cabarrus County to order. It's like we have a quorum. Rob is our only missing member. So do I have a motion to adopt this agenda?
So moved.
Motion, second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right, next we have a new member amongst us. Our esteemed colleague from Kannapolis, Councilwoman Jean Dixon, has been appointed to this board to replace former Mayor Darrell Henry's seat. And I believe we're to do the oath of office for Ms. Dixon.
If you will please stand, place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right, and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Jean Dixon,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of my office as Director
of my office as Director
of the Water and Sewer Authority of Cabarrus County.
of the Water and Sewer Authority of Cabarrus County.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jean. Glad you were among us. Drinking from the fire hose for the first 6 meetings. Got to get your stride in. Appreciate your service. Okay, we will move on to unfinished business. We have minutes from the November 19th, 2025 meeting. Do I hear a motion to?
So moved.
Motion a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries. Okay, we will move on to new business. Wendy, you're going to kick us off with our audit report.
Good evening. I'm going to present our audit, our annual comprehensive financial report. I was going to pull it myself. And with me, I have John Kaplar. He's here from the audit firm. It was Potter and Company, and they have changed to DMJPS, but John's still with us, and Sheila is still my audit manager. So, same people, different name. So our audit highlights, unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which is the best you can get. So there's no financial statement findings, no single audit findings, no single audits due to the ARPA funds that we received, almost $10 million this year. And then the financial statements were submitted for the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. That was done at the end of December. Oh, sorry, we looked at things. All right, so the first slide, I'm going to go everything. This is pretty high level information. If you have any questions more detailed, I'm happy to answer those. It was a good year for us. As you can see, net position increased $29 million and unrestricted increased $22 million. And this is net position. It's not fund balance that you may be used to seeing in your jurisdictions. We are, without getting too detailed, we're full accrual, which is more like a private company numbers, not, I guess, your modified approach to government and accounting. So it's a little different. It's net position, so it's still our equity per se, but it's not fund balance that you may be used to seeing at a jurisdiction with government. Of the $100 million that we have in unrestricted, 43 million of that is Charlotte Water money that we do sort of have set aside to pay our fees for. I used all of the revenue bond money first, and then now we're starting to pay our bills with the Charlotte Water money. So that sort of inflates this number also. So I wanted to point that out. The main drivers to increase our net position, $10 million in ARPA funds. Since we're full accrual, we see the revenue, but you don't see the expenses at this point. So we recognize the $10 million revenue, but the expenditure is a capital asset. And that's also the same with the money that we received from Charlotte Water. But we did get $7.4 million in interest revenue. Any questions before I move on? Next slide. Yep. All right, this is operating revenues and expenditures, so this does not include those things that I just named that increase total net position, but it is a little different this year. You see that revenues are more than expenditures. And this is because the fixed cost went up because we had our first principal payment for phase 3. So that's another thing that the revenue is in this number, but the expense is not. The interest part of this, but the principal is not in the expenditure number or expense number, so. And then moving on to system development fees. Thank you. We have not been spending our system development fees, so it's just been, we have them set aside. They are restricted, of course. We received $5.56 million this year, which is less, 1.2 million from the previous year. But still we have 22 million in system development fees. They're there for a future project. We're spending our ARPA funds, we're spending our grant funds from the state right now. We want to spend those before we move on to the system development fees. And that is all that I wanted to present. I'm happy to answer your questions, and I am going to turn it over to Mr. Cathar for his audit. Yeah,
Questions for Wendy?
Yes.
Any questions for Wendy?
Thanks, Wendy. Again, just thanks for the opportunity to come here and present to y'all tonight. We were talking before we got started. I've been here a minute. It's been several years now. So I just appreciate the opportunity, enjoy the relationship we've had for all these years. We did change names this year, but the same people and that type of thing. We just want to thank Wendy and Shelley and her staff and everybody for what they do. We know we're an intrusion when we come in, and they do a great job of helping us get done and get out as quick as we can. As Wendy stated, we did issue an unmodified opinion. This is the highest level of assurance that we can give as certified independent accountants, that the financial statements of the Water and Sewer Authority are fairly presented at June 30th, 2025. This is commonly referred to as a cleanup opinion. In addition to our independent auditors report, we also issued reports on the water and sewer compliance with certain regs and regulations associated with the state and federal money that you got. As Wendy pointed out in her presentation, we did not have any findings, question cost, or any compliance issues that we had to issue related to those funds too. So there's a financial audit and there's a compliance audit that we have to do, and we have to report to the state and the Fed and that type of thing. So no issues there. And like when you said that the statements had again been presented for the CAFR and get that certification, and we do not expect it to not be certified again this year. So I'm glad to answer any questions too, and thank you again for the opportunity.
So is that something new? And I noticed when I was looking through this online, is the reporting to the feds and the state? Because I don't remember seeing those in.
I think last year was the first year that we had to do that because the amount of federal money and state money that you got. And as Wendy said, as you're using those bond proceeds and that ARPA money and that type of thing that's kind of come through and that type of thing, we have to, those are considered federal funds or state funds, so we have to do funds. So that's correct. I think, like we said, last year, I think was the first year that we had to do that. And again, we've had to continue to do that. And I'm expecting we'll probably have to do it again this year too. Yeah, we got several more years of that.
Well, I think the report looks great. I think you guys did a great job.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got a great team here. And like I said, Mike, I was around here when Mike was been here forever, and he did a great job as far as internal reports and stuff like that. And Chuck Odd, so y'all got a great team.
Thank you for your work. Hey, moving to the next agenda item, Wendy, we've got audit to amendment to the current audit contract.
So there was during the calendar year 2025, the LGC, or Local Government Commission, changed the due date from October 31st to December 31st, which is nice for us. But there was a timing issue whenever we did our audit contract. It would still have the October 31st date in there. And then there's an additional wrinkle with the federal government shutdown. The OMB compliance supplement was not given out by the federal government, which means that they couldn't complete our single audit that they did. So the state gave us another extension to February 12th we actually get everything done by December 31st, so we just wanted to, when we were doing the audit or the amendment, we just went ahead and put February 12th in there just to make sure we didn't have to come back again. I'm asking that you approve the amendment for the audit contract. And with the only thing that's changed is the date.
So moved.
Got a motion for second effect, second, on favor, in discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. Thank you, Wendy. All right, we'll move on to reports, and you're first, Wendy. Quarterly financial, anything to talk to us about?
I'll not bore you with any more additional financial information, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them. It's for the quarter or for the time ending of December 31st, 2025.
Questions for Wendy about the financial report? Okay, hearing none.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. We move on, Thomas. Bay Creek wastewater treatment plant expansion build, design build update.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we've been talking about the Muddy Creek expansion project for a while. We are at a new phase of that project now with the completion of the conceptual design. So I wanted to give an update on where we are relative to that design build process for that plant expansion.
Yeah, go ahead and try. Might take a second.
Okay.
Good.
Great. So again, the existing Muddy Creek plant, we've covered this at times, but I figured it may be helpful again tonight. Originally was constructed as a 75,000 gallon per day plant in the early 1990s. That was expanded to 150,000 gallons, so doubling in 2008 through 2010, that time frame, and then doubling again to 300,000 gallons per day in 2018 to 2019, that time frame. And this plant, here's an aerial view kind of from the Rocky River looking back towards this plant. Over to the side, this plant serves the southern portion of Cabarrus County. So this expansion scope for our upcoming expansion, again, Brown and Caldwell has just completed conceptual design for this, which was a major milestone for us in this process. So the scope here is to expand from 300,000 gallons per day, where it's currently permitted, to 660,000 gallons per day. And that has modifications or expansion of about everything at the plant. Influent pumping, the headwork, preliminary treatment, flow equalization. The biological treatment basins are actually getting built as new basins off to the side to be much larger there. Modifications to filtration, disinfection before it goes to the river, our effluent flow measurement because it will be a bigger plant, and then sludge holding as well. We're able to repurpose some of those basins, we believe, for sludge holding purposes. And so on that expansion approach, progressive design build is the way that we are pursuing that. That is an alternative delivery method. It allows some early and consistent engagement with the contractor and the design engineer and WSACC all together. This is the same delivery method we used on the Rocky River expansions to 30 MGD, which has been completed, and the 34 MGD project, which is currently in progress. And so some key goals of progressive design build is to accelerate schedule as much as possible compared with other delivery methods through that collaboration fairly early on with all team members. Identifying and mitigating as many potential risks as possible, whether those be to schedule or cost impacts. And then identifying and minimizing potential operational disruptions too. As with Rocky River, this is a plant that we will need to continue operating throughout that construction process. And so the progressive design build process, it's been a few years since we went through this for the Rocky River plant and those expansions. And so the general approach here is to advertise with a request for qualifications or RFQ, because engineers love acronyms. For prospective design build teams. So those are teams of contractors and engineers that team up and they propose together. And so each team will provide a statement of qualifications or an SOQ, as they submit that. WSACC will review those, will interview those design build teams who submit those SOQs. And we'll negotiate a pre-construction services contract. At the end of the pre-construction services, we'll review pricing from that design build team and bring that to the board. There are several board related milestones along this process as well. But in general, at the end of pre-construction services, we'll review pricing from that design build team, and then they will provide a guaranteed maximum price for the project at that kind of intermediate phase of design. And as with Rocky River, we may have multiple GMPs or guaranteed maximum prices that make up the project if that's advantageous for some schedule or cost reasons. For example, in Rocky River, we bought some electrical equipment that had a really long lead time. We went ahead and did that GMP very early on. Bought some process equipment in the same one. So where are we in this process right now? So for Muddy Creek, we issued the request for qualifications to these prospective teams on December 18th. We held a project information meeting a few days ago on January 6th. And our SOQ due date, or those statements of qualifications, will come in from those teams by January 27th. We'll review those. We will notify the shortlisted teams by February 10th. Our goal is to have interviews with those shortlisted teams on the 24th of February, and then a notification of the preferred team on March 3rd, and working forward towards a pre-construction services contract for this board's consideration from there. And so this kind of gives you an idea of where we are more visually. But the next thing coming up, we are working through some questions. We've worked through all the questions we've received to date from those prospective teams. We've issued a couple of addenda. If more questions come in up to a point, we will review those and answer those. And then those SOQs will come in end of January.
So who's on the group that's going to be reviewing the SOQ submissions?
Sure. So that will be an internal group. So it'll be Chad, myself, Chris, and maybe a few others. We haven't completely identified that team. But it was important to get that out. Getting it out in mid-December, we gave them a little bit extra time relative to Christmas and all that. But
can you speak a little to the level of interest in the project?
Sure. So our project information meeting, we had 3 teams. It's kind of interesting because you can see the teams forming kind of as this goes along. And so we had 3 pairs of engineers and contractors come into that meeting. We had a 4th pair that was interested in that. That engineer is currently looking around for a contractor on that. So there is robust interest in it. We've had a lot of site visits prior to the RFQ with these folks. So folks believe this will be a great project for their teams.
Going after a project like this versus a hard bid of a project like this is a little bit heavier of a lift for these teams. So to get 3 or 4 teams looking at art is good, but you don't always get that because it is a pretty heavy lift and time and expense for them to go after these projects versus submitting a bid, going to a pre-bid meeting and submitting a bid.
Informational meeting mandatory or?
It was not mandatory. So we did talk, Brown and Caldwell helped us to develop the RFQ. We did talk with them about that. They thought leaving that more flexible, being around the holidays, and you didn't want necessarily someone just missing that meeting to be the one factor that knocked them out of a contention for that. It was not mandatory.
What do we think the project construction time will be?
Sure, we have provided a goal within the RFQ. And again, we'll need to talk with this design build team because they will take over everything from design and construction moving forward in connection with us. But we've identified a goal for the end of 2028 in that RFQ. That may or may not be they may or may not feel that is an aggressive goal. But we will have, conversation as we get into this and as we go through the process of considering all these folks.
Other questions about Muddy Creek?
This should be something that comes back to the board in that March.
March or April, after the notification of the preferred team, we will work with them to develop that pre-construction services contract. So the idea would be to bring that contract with the recommendation to award it for that team.
Okay, good. For the update. All right, you're still on the floor. Give us a CIP update.
Sure, we have other things going as well, a lot going on right now. So, for our CIP updates, we have the plant expansion work at Rocky River that's actively in construction. A couple of collection system construction projects that we've been talking about as well. A couple of studies, and then we've got this section down here because we do have a couple of active requests for qualification, one of which we just talked about, and advertisements for bid. So wanted to have a section for that as well. So as far as plant construction is concerned at Rocky River, last month, Crowder completed some interior piping installation at Equalization Tank 2. They are still working on that to some extent, but they completed some. They are working on a lot of concrete placement work and rehab work at Anoxic Basin 4 and Aeration Basin 4. Aeration Basin 4 is an existing basin out there, and so it's 50 years old and it's concrete and it's been in a harsh environment for all this time. And so they're doing some work on the inside of it and then placing that anoxic zone outside of that basin to connect to it. So they've continued concrete placement, pipe installation, some backfill work at the internal mixed liquor recycle or Emler meter vaults. They've continued tons of mechanical work at the main pump station and secondary clarifier rehab. And so the first picture up here over to the right, if I can get the pointer's not out. It's not working for me tonight. But with the yellow crane in the middle of it there, that is Anoxic Basin 4. And so that's the anoxic basins that are outside of it. Basin 4, the existing basin is over to the right. Over to the right of that picture and the next picture over to the right, you can see the secondary clarifier, the circular tank, and the coating work that's going on in there. These are 50-year-old secondary clarifiers. And so this work should ensure that concrete is in good shape well into the future. And then I did my best down here at the bottom in that picture to take a picture of Equalization Tank 2. So this is standing on Equalization Tank 2. If you can see into the background there, I know many of you have been to the plant on various tours. You can see Equalization Tank 1 is just a small sliver in the background. So it gives you an idea of kind of the massive size of Equalization Tank 2 in comparison there. So in the next month, they will continue that secondary clarifier rehab. They're going to do leak testing at Anoxic Basin 4, the basin in the picture here, and continue concrete work there as well. Continue the concrete rehab inside Aeration Basin 4, some electrical work at the DAF building. They are going to do startup for one side of our main pump station, which is an exciting milestone to hit, and continue addressing punch list items at several places as well. So a couple collection system projects. Lower Cottle Creek is still ongoing. This is a big project. We are continuing to work with Gavilan Dorn and RH Price on this project. To date, the contractor has installed about 13,000 feet, well, a little bit more than that, of 48-inch pipeline, around 1,400 feet of 36-inch pipeline at the upstream end of the project. And so they've got 3 crews working on this and the associated blasting crews. And a manhole rehab crew is out actively working right now. And so you can see these folks working at multiple places along this line. So next steps, they will continue installing that 48-inch and 36-inch pipeline. They'll continue coating those manholes. They're about half through the manholes at this point that they need to coat. And there will be some continuing drilling and blasting work. They're finding just lots of rock along the way, as we expected. The Back Creek, we did not find lots of rock on this project. And so this is in the Harrisburg area, roughly between Raging Ridge Road and Hickory Ridge Road. And so the pipe and manhole installation for this project is complete. The contractor's working on a few remaining punch list items, some silt fence removal, fine grading after they pull the silt fence up, placement of live staking at various places, et cetera. And so our next steps there are to complete that punch list work and those final closeout documents. This is, both of those collection system projects are ARPA funded projects. So a couple of studies. Our master plan and MPDES permitting for the Rocky River plant relative to the MPDES permitting. Black and Veatch submitted their final engineering alternatives analysis to WSACC. And we submitted that to DEQ after we reviewed it. We submitted it to the state for their review on December 17th of last year. And so this is an important step towards the expanded permit pages for 36 MGD and 45 MGD. The state has to review that EAA. And as they review that, after they review that and approve that, we can submit that formal permit application for those formal limits pages at 36 MGD and 45 MGD. So we don't get everything tangled up as we've discussed, we won't prioritize kind of those formal requests there. But on the heels of that, we will have a speculative limits request for 54 MGD as well to cover all those bases. So the wastewater treatment facilities plan and preliminary engineering report, some of these projects are kind of tied together at this point, which is as intended. Muddy Creek, we received the final Muddy Creek expansion alternatives analysis and preliminary engineering report from Brown and Caldwell during this time frame. That allowed us to get out the RFQ that we talked about earlier with the previous presentation. At the Rocky River plant, or for the Rocky River plant rather, we received the final TM for some biological process model updates and the draft expansion to 54 MGD PER. So the preliminary engineering report for that expansion to 54 with those tiers as we've discussed at 36, 45, and 54. And so that is an enormous document, as you might imagine. We are going to complete review for that draft PER and provide comments to Brown and Caldwell, work with them on those as we have with the other reports they've done. And then we have an open request that DEQ is working on for that formal MPDES permit limits page for 0.66 MGD at Muddy Creek. And so that, if you remember, that is an intermediate permit limits page between where we are at 0.3 and the other current formal page that we have at 1 MGD. And so we're just getting that page identified for the middle.
And that draft ER for the expansion to 54, as we work through that will be critical for when we come to the CIP updates along with the budgeting process this spring. Because what we've seen is we have the total cost to expand is roughly the same, a little less, but the 34 to 36 is more, whereas the others came down. The way it's split out has changed some, so the way it'll be presented in the CIP to the board will look a little different, and we will go over all the reasons for that and everything as we move towards that over the next couple months.
Sure. And from a high level, those changes being related mainly to nutrient limits and the impacts of that as we go.
And you verified there's no nutrient controls that we have to do with the expansion of Muddy Creek?
We do not, from what we understand, there will not be, because that is an existing permit up to 1 MGD. Yeah, so that's our understanding right now. We are looking to get that permit limits page back, of course, but that's our understanding right now.
Verbally, that's what's being communicated to us, that anything involved with our current permits, the 34 or the 1, does not have nutrient limits, but anything we do beyond that, new permit wise or expansion to those permits, would have nutrients associated with.
Right.
Thomas, can you remind me, since we've got the 1 at Muddy Creek, why are we going to the 0.66, like in plain language?
Sure. So we are operating just under 200,000 gallons per day right now. To go to 1 MGD would be a much larger plant than would be really feasible to operate. And so we are, Brown and Caldwell and their design, they have taken some considerations to make it simpler to expand to 1 MGD, in the future. And so their preliminary design addresses that. We have identified that with these teams that are coming in to look at the, you know, the actual design build process as well, that we want to do that. But it's just a matter of, you know, with 200,000 gallons per day actually flowing in there right now, going beyond that 660 would be difficult to operate and it'd be very expensive. Also, if you have equipment that is not getting used regularly, then, you know, that equipment needs to be used.
Okay, thank you.
Thomas, the remaining Black and Beach work that seemingly has continued for decades, it feels like they're still operating under their original scope and fee. Are we, okay. So even though it's been extended, we're still good.
And the kind of thought of that originally from the start was that the majority of that project was going to be like an 18-month, 24-month process, but the project was probably going to drag on from like a 3 to 4 year period from obtaining the permit. So that was kind of understood from the beginning.
Yes, but the engineering alternatives analysis of the permit application itself, we're working through with them, and the traditional water quality modeling kind of goes beyond that initial effort, but it is all in the original scope. A couple of active requests for qualifications. Again, we've got that RFQ acronym and advertisements for bid, which we don't have an acronym for some reason. Muddy Creek expansion, we've talked about this evening with the previous presentation. Again, we issued that RFQ for design build services on December 18th. We will continue to respond to those questions from contractors and engineer teams as they come in. If we receive additional, and then we will receive those statements of qualification on January 27th. Rocky River Sewer Rehab. So HDR has submitted the final design documents for bidding for this project. WSACC advertised for bids on this project on January 12th, so earlier this week. And so this is also an ARPA funded project. So we are concurrently advertising for bids and receiving the DWI review of the contract documents. And so we will continue through that DWI review process. We will issue any addenda needed there for the bid process, whether that's because of anything they do or because of a question from a prospective contractor. We plan to receive bids on this project in early February and evaluate those. Again, continuing to coordinate with GWI even beyond that milestone for associated approvals. They approved the award of the contract and everything from there. And then presenting the bid recommendation for that project to this board for your consideration. And so as a reminder, this is the rehab of the Rocky River Interceptor between roughly Highway 29 all the way up to the county line past Highway 73. Mount Pleasant force main upsizing. Again, this is a replacement of an existing 8-inch force main, or a pair of them actually. You know, one from Station 1 to Station 2, another one from Station 2 out to Highway 49. And again, to the intersection of Cold Springs Road and Highway 49. And so we are working our way through that Muddy Creek RFQ. This will also be a progressive design build RFQ is how we're planning to do this one. And so we will have some of those same engineering firms and contractors that likely have some interest in this one. And so we're trying to stagger that to where this RFQ will come out very soon. We're actively working on it, but to give them a chance to respond to one thing at a time, basically. So we expect to issue that RFQ very soon, probably within the next month here. And that's all that I have. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Probably not a capital improvement project, but we had some dam repair work, restoration work.
Yeah,
That we talked about.
Right.
How's that going?
so we are working through that design still with Schnabel engineers that are a consultant on that. So they are still in the design process, kind of finalizing the details. We've seen the scope of what that looks like. We will present that as part of the CIP moving forward. The process with that is Schnabel will finalize their design. We will submit that design to the North Carolina Dam Safety folks, and so at the state level. of those folks. They'll review that design. They'll tell us if they've got any comments. They apparently need to review the entire thing before we pursue that any further. But as they come back, we've already, got some ideas of cost and those sorts of things. But as they come back from that, then we can consider bidding out that work as well.
Other questions? Okay, thank you, Thomas, for your work.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Chad, we, not sure if we need an actual work session, but you
No.
want to, related to our treatment plan expansion alternatives.
Right. As we've talked about in the past, kind of held this here as a placemaker. So we kind of placeholder. So we have some discussion surrounding this. I think WSAC recognizes that currently with the changes that are taking place among boards at our member jurisdictions, the makeup of the WSAC board, everything else that, it's going to be difficult over the next couple of months. We're probably going to have to get our feet kind of back under us as we move into the spring. I do want to ensure the board that the processes are taking place to make sure from a permitting standpoint, we're ready to do what we need to do. And that has to take place. Thomas and myself talked the other day, it's hard to overstate how blessed WSAC was when this capacity crunch hit that we already had the permits in hand. Had we not had that, it would have been multi times worse than it was. So we are working hard to make sure we have those permits. We did end this last year at about 21.6 MGD, a 30 MGD plant. We'll be able to permit that 34, the amount with the 34, sometime this year or early next year, whenever the board kind of determines that it's the time to release that capacity out. So it's available for allocation. So from a capacity standpoint, we're not in a bad spot. So we don't have to make a rushed, panic, quick decision here. But I am going to ask the jurisdictions to work towards some time in the springtime period, maybe it's an April date or a May date, to come back to WSAC with, this is what we think our number's going to roughly be. We're not holding anybody to it. They want to come back and say, well, we think it's going to be somewhere around 3 or 4 for Concord, or whatever it may be. We're not holding anybody to that, but that way we can start getting a feel of the magnitude of what the total number is going to be, because that will start giving us some, kind of that kicking off point to really feel like what's going to be required. The other part of that's probably going to be some input from the jurisdictions of when that capacity is going to be needed. Not necessarily wanted, want, need, sometimes a little different, but when is it going to be needed? Is it 2030, like we really need to have this, or 2032? When's that time period? Because that drives the other part of this decision, is the pace. And so that's really our challenge for 2026. I think as a board, it's going to be our biggest challenge, is to figure out that size and that pace, the speed at which we operate, the timing for how we move forward. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that being a decision that takes the majority of 2026 while we're working through these permittings and everything. But that's going to be something that I'm going to continue to kind of try to push and drive home. We move through these changes within the board. Try to keep us moving forward. Any questions on that or input on that?
Thoughts, questions, input?
Agree. I mean, I think there's a lot, we've been discussing it for 5 months now. In every second work session, we discuss it, and we're getting closer, but it takes a lot of time to make this decision. We've got to plug in those numbers to the formula here, so sooner rather than later without it being a rush decision, because it's a big one.
Apple's perspective, we have just completed our new water and sewer master plan, which has this factored into it. We're waiting on our financial models from our consultant to be done. Should happen this month. So once all that's in hand, we'll scheduling some time with city council to start to dive into it. So we're probably at the beginning of that, but I think we'll rapid fire and try to understand But I think that spring timeframe is probably pretty. To make decisions though. One question I had, have you given any thought to when do we need to start talking about sort of the financial model for this? Is it, do you anticipate it changing? Gonna be based on who wants what, member jurisdictions, or is it historic or some combination, or seems to be another piece of the puzzle though? What are we building? The pace we're building and then how do we? Who pays what? Is that gonna be part of the equation we need to?
Yeah, it's gonna have to be, you know, I mean, I think it's part of the goal of this with everyone making their request is they're kind of establishing their percentage of equity. That comes with the capacity and also their percent of the debt that they will be undertaking with that. That's obviously up for discussion. That's not a bad decision, that's a board decision, you know, but I think that's kind of the way it's been leaning along. If you want to bite off a bigger chunk, that's fine, but great, but jurisdiction's gonna need to own up for that, the costs associated. So, yeah, because we've got a lot, I mean, the costs are still kind of fluid with what we're looking at from these different tiers, and so we're working through all of that. So all of this is gonna start to come together, I think this year. And we have to keep in mind, we're trying to make a good decision, not the perfect decision, because I don't know that there is a perfect decision because we're operating under assumptions and unknowns, but we've got to do the best and most responsible we can. So.
When they bring back that financial model and some more information, do you think there will be I'm sure this is not the right engineering term, but like economies of scale, you know, like if we've got 1 + 2 + 3 = 5 and the economy of scale is at 6, like, will they have information like that in there that then this board, you know, would need to decide, okay, well, if you're at 1 and we're at 2, how do we, you know what I mean? Like, will that be in there?
Yeah, I mean, we can look at that, you know, I mean, the simplest way is you look at kind of a cost per gallon, when you look on those. And, as we've talked about through that, looking at the expansion to 50 or to 45 is going to be the more costly per gallon, whereas on to 54 is gonna be more economical. That's probably flattened out a little bit because now the 34 to 36, instead of being really economical, is gonna be very uneconomical because it's gonna include the nutrient removal for the 34 before it. So.
I think asking that a different way, same kind of concept, say the jurisdictions all get comfortable with what they need from just a planning standpoint, and what is that number between the 36
Correct.
and 45, or between the
Yes.
45 and the 54.
Yep.
We all have to just hold our nose and live with the fact that we're gonna have to
Yep.
go up or down
Yep.
to sort of hit the target of what those expansions
And,
need to feel realistically be.
And I think what would happen then is you would probably have to start considering some less than ideal options. You know, having symmetry at the plant is great. Everyone loves that from an operational standpoint. It is definitely the best way to go, but maybe that's not a luxury we can afford. Depending on that, you know, that's where we'll have to start getting into some tough decisions there that may not be ideal, but they may be what makes sense for our community. So it may be something we have to look at. That's why getting that estimate, that rough number, kind of establishing that. And along with that, and I think it's going to be an equally difficult part, is trying to get Charlotte Water to identify if they're going to want to participate and commit to participating in that, because that very well could impact our total number as well. So there's a lot. So I'm saying it's going to be that's our challenge for 2026 is getting this to more known, to a more understood situation.
Any other discussion about this? All on the same page about how we're progressing. Okay. Good deal. Any other updates?
Just a little, like I said, flows, we ended up down a little bit from the previous year. I think about 600,000 gallons a day at the plant overall, down from the previous year, which did not surprise us because we had a pretty dry second half of the year, we're actually really dry right now, when you look at groundwater numbers. I did want to update the board. We've talked about it some and on the system development fee view that we've been looking at that at. We have been working with our consultant on that and basically have come to the point where we're going to kind of hold that up so we get through the budgeting process, because the CIP again is going to change a pretty significant amount with the way this 36, 45, 54 gets laid out and some decisions we make on that. I think that there's a pathway for us to increase that system development fee some to help with funding projects in the future, but we want to make sure we have the most accurate information we can. And we're not against a time frame right now on that. So that's something I think when we get April, May, will be more of a discussion topic for us. But I just wanted the board to understand that was moving forward. We have been working on that. And the last thing I wanted to remind the board on our budgeting, we're underway on the budget work here within WSACC, and just kind of reminding everyone that March will be kind of the draft budget information will go to the board, and then in April we'll come to the board for approval on that. I don't expect any surprises in our budget this year. I think it's going to be a pretty clean budgeting process. We're losing a little bit of our inefficiencies at the plant because the O2 plant will actually come offline this year, so we won't be operating blowers and an oxygen plant, and some of those things that led us to be kind of inefficient at the plant are going away. So I don't think it's going to be it's not going to be a real challenging year from a rate increase standpoint. We'll get through it and find out, but I don't anticipate anything dramatic at all from that standpoint. And that's all I have.
Any updates on the next allocation true up?
We don't have any final numbers yet, but I mean, they're going to be better than they normally are. They're going to be, because the flow is down.
Right.
So it's going to be,
A month or so, or?
yeah, there'll be,
We're actively working on that right now. Trying to look at the numbers about 3 times in a row and getting qualified and then coming back to it the next day, that sort of thing. So we have, as of this week, we have the information we need, all joking aside. We've got the information we need for that. Everybody's kind of confirmed from the individual jurisdiction staff, their updates. And we really appreciate that because that's a heavy lift for them every year or every 6 months rather. So we've got that process. Again, flows did come down some, and looks like a fair number of things were built as well. So we expect that to be a little bit more robust than typical. Yeah.
good.
Just backing up to system development, I'd pass this along to Chad. I had some questions from the county. I think there's some misunderstanding. They were hearing from their elected officials to staff, and they had some questions. I don't think they quite understood what the system development fee is, how it's calculated, the statutory basis for it, and all that. So I had to him talk me down. And I don't know if at some point you're going to have to address the commissioners directly about it.
I did talk with Kelly.
Good. Yeah.
Any other questions for Chad or staff?
I have a question, maybe William, do you have any updates on interlocal?
Well, at this time it's kind of on pause, just to, at some point, we will be visiting that, for the 30 to 34.
On are we done with the 27th?
That is the 34.
That's what-
We've already allocated out.
27.
To 34, yeah.
So we're pausing it until,
Well, the board hasn't given us direction that they want to allocate those capacity out yet.
so
So
we'll discuss
that
it.
we had talked about doing it in 2026. I
Okay.
mean, we can do it any time.
Right, that's why when
So-
we hit 26, that's why I was
Yes.
curious
Yeah.
when we were gonna, so whenever we're ready to discuss that, then
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
And that'll be
that'll be under that same 5-year historical.
correct.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
I knew we had that discussion, timeline, that piece.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Other questions, comments, thoughts? Okay. We will open up our meeting to any public comments. If there's anybody that would like to address the board on any topics, please go down.
I don't see any public, but as far as a board member comment, the commissioners have an agenda item to name another person in my role. So this will be my last meeting. Last time I didn't get a last meeting to say anything, so I did send a note to Chad that I hope he passed along, but I mean, people often question me about serving on a water and sewer board, and how can that be fun? And I'm like, well, it's been a whole career talking about infrastructure and how that supports a community and growth, and it really is fun. And I won't say lawsuits are fun, any of that stuff, the things we went through with all those trying times, but have such an excellent staff. I think it just makes it easy to be on this board and a group that I know at one point Dave Phillips talked about there was some time when there was some rancor on this board. And we really haven't experienced that. And I think it's a great group to work with, and I'll miss it. This will be my last time getting unappointed. That's why I'm gonna make this speech.
You missed, Jonathan.
Thank you.
There's nobody that knows more about infrastructure. I think Josh referenced that. He was asking where something was. I'm like, too bad Jonathan's not here because he would know. So.
Yeah,
he'll be-
you know, every topographical change somewhere in the county.
I'll follow that up because I am on the county commissioner's agenda for Monday evening as well. And whispers in the wind are that this seat will not be occupied by myself. But right, I would echo that. I've been on the board for a number of years now. It goes back to Coleman and through Mike Wilson and now Chad. But it's one of the most professional organizations I've ever had the pleasure to work with. And I'm gonna miss it as well, you know. But I would encourage the board to work hard to be non-political, because this truly is a countywide, every resident, regardless of municipality or rural area that they live in. I mean, this is serving the citizens of Cabarrus County.
Well, both of you have done great service to this board. Great private sector perspective. We've always had a smattering of that. Josh has done that in the short time he's been here, and we've had several boards that sort of aren't aligned with any elected official or an appointed official, and good perspective. And John, it goes without saying, the service to this whole county for decades. This board as well. So there's a lot of experience down on that end of the table. A lot of great questions and insight, and keeping us all honest, and for sure. I think it all plays out the way it is, then it's falls for this board. Share service. Okay, any other public comments? If not, we'll close that portion of the meeting. And any other topics for this board you need to bring up? Hearing none, we will, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session under GS 143-318-11A1 and A6. Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed, we're ending closed session.